Vladimir Putin calls on Russia's armed forces to unite following this weekend's short-lived rebellion by Wagner Group mercenaries. Yevgeny Prigozhin claims his aborted rebellion against the Russian army was not intended to bring down the government.
EU foreign affairs ministers urge caution in the aftermath of the armed uprising in Russia as the full consequences of the events play out. As MEPs prepare to vote on the EU's contentious nature restoration law, farmers themselves raise questions about it.
Over 2 million Muslims are expected to visit Saudi Arabia for the annual Hajj pilgrimage, which is underway in Mecca.
In a televised address to the nation, Vladimir Putin has told members of the mercenary Wagner Group that they would now be welcome in Russia's armed forces after they called off the weekend's short-lived rebellion.
Сегодня у вас есть возможность продолжить службу России, заключив контракт с Министерством обороны или другими силовыми органами, либо вернуться к своим родным и близким. Кто хочет, сможет уйти в Белоруссию. Данное мною обещание будет исполнено.
The Russian president said internal divisions were playing into Western hands.
Именно такого исхода братоубийства хотели враги России и неонацисты в Киеве, и их западные покровители, и разного рода национал-предатели. Хотели, чтобы солдаты России убивали друг друга, чтобы погибли военнослужащие и мирные жители.
While condemning the criminal nature of the uprising, Putin also thanked the mercenaries for pulling back from the conflict and not letting the situation deteriorate. Yevgeny Prigozhin has broken his silence. 2 days after the aborted rebellion against the Russian army, the Wagner leader released an audio message saying his goal had been to save his group, not overthrow the government.
Мирные жители были рады нас видеть. Мы показали мастер-класс, каким образом должно было выглядеть 24 февраля 2022 года. У нас не было цели свержения существующего режима и законно избранной власти, о чем много раз говорилось. Развернулись мы для того, чтобы не проливать кровь русских солдат.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has addressed the nation in the wake of the uprising, condemning what he called the criminal actions of those who staged an armed mutiny and calling on Wagner mercenaries to join the regular army. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, visited the Donetsk region on Monday to present awards to the Kortitsia group. He says that what happened was a humiliation for President Putin.
EU foreign ministers are urging caution in the aftermath of the armed uprising in Russia as the full consequences of the events are still playing out. For some of them, what happened shows once again the risks that European countries have to face, with others pointing to what they call the grey areas of the current situation.
Néanmoins, si bien sûr ces événements posent beaucoup de questions, et peut-être plus de questions que de réponses à l'heure actuelle, il est manifeste qu'ils ont souligné qu'il y a des tensions intérieures, qu'il y a même des fissures, des fractures, des failles dans le dispositif. Et ils ont mis en évidence l'ensemble des tensions au sein du système russe.
You know, it took half a day for a military detachment to move 200 kilometers away from Moscow. So imagine how fast can they do that crossing Belarus and appearing on Lithuania's border. So definitely we are very strongly asking our allies to look at our situation extremely seriously in the light of everything that is happening in Russia. And again, really to put out very specific plans as to how to reinforce the eastern flank, especially the countries that have a border with Russia and Belarus.
But it's not just risks coming from the events over the weekend. The EU's top diplomat Joseph Borrell says Ukraine and its allies could benefit from the chaos in the Russian system.
Si tu adversario entra en un combate entre diferentes partes, es evidente que eso es una cosa positiva desde el punto de vista del desarrollo de las operaciones militares. Piense que de repente las tropas de Wagner han abandonado sus posiciones en el frente y se han ido a hacer otra cosa. Por lo tanto, eso para los ucranianos no puede ser sino positivo.
While it's still unclear how the situation will evolve, one thing is certain. The EU will maintain its support for Ukraine. Ministers agreed on an increase of 3.5 billion euros to the so-called European Peace Facility, an off-budget fund used to finance security and defence missions outside the EU. It now amounts to 12 billion euros. The largest part of this money has been pledged to provide weapons and military assistance to Ukraine, even if Hungary is blocking the release of the next amount, worth as much as 500 million euros.
A court in Serbia has released 3 police officers from Kosovo who were detained earlier this month. The hearing in the central town of Kraljevo said that they'd been charged with possession of weapons and explosives, but that they were free to go. It's not clear if the case will go ahead in their absence. It comes after the EU brokered talks between Serbian and Kosovo leaders. Kosovo claims the 3 officers were abducted from inside its territory. Serbia rejects the accusation. In a tweet, Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti welcomed the officers' release, but also insisted that Serbia must be held accountable for what he called a serious human rights violation. The feud led to Kosovo blocking Serbian trucks from crossing the border and a reciprocal move from Belgrade authorities. It's the latest in a sequence of soaring tensions over governance issues in towns in northern Kosovo. In May, Serbs attempted to block elected ethnic Albanian officials from taking office after a poll that most of the Serb population boycotted.
In the midst of a heated debate on the EU's contentious nature restoration law, Vincent Delobel is asking himself some questions. This farmer near Tournai in Belgium has around 70 dairy goats on his 20-hectare farm. He took it over from his family a few years ago now and has already committed to organic farming. He didn't wait for political decisions to be taken before launching his farm in the direction of preserving ecosystems, including the installation of plant fences.
Et elles abritent un grand nombre d'insectes, d'une part, qui peuvent être auxiliaires, bénéfiques pour les cultures, mais elles fournissent également de l'ombrage pour les animaux, du bois de chauffage pour la maison. Et elles permettent également, grâce à leur système racinaire important, de favoriser la percolation de l'eau de pluie plus profond dans le sol, notamment en cas d'extrême climatique.
For him, everything starts with the soil. His meadows are diversified with grass and vegetables, always with a view to restoring ecosystems. This variety attracts more insects, and the different roots of each plant strengthen the soil against extreme weather conditions. Vincent rotates the grazing of his meadows to avoid exhausting the land. He's also closely following the current discussions in the European Parliament on the Nature Restoration Act, which aims to restore 20% of the EU's land and marine areas. The organic farmer supports the EU's climate ambitions, but has some doubts.
Nos réserves, c'est clairement l'idée d'avoir une séparation des espaces, avec une production intensive d'une part, et des autres espaces où on ne puisse plus rien faire, ou qui soient uniquement dédiés à la conservation de la nature, la préservation. Nous, notre modèle, c'est absolument pas celui-là, c'est vraiment l'intégration dans les écosystèmes agricoles, nourriciers, avoir de la place et des fonctions vraiment qu'il y ait une participation des insectes, des arbres, des haies à la production alimentaire et à l'approvisionnement sain et durable de notre alimentation.
On Tuesday, all eyes will be on the European Parliament's Environment Committee, which is due to vote again on the text. The centre-right and far-right want to reject this proposal outright because they say it threatens agricultural production and therefore food safety. The farming community stresses, though, that as things stand, there are not enough resources to make this transition a success.
Okay, thanks.
It's the image that marks the official start of the Hajj, the annual Muslim pilgrimage to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. And this year over 2 million worshippers are expected to make the trip as it returns to full capacity for the first time since the pandemic. For several days there'll be a constant flow of worshippers around the Kaaba, a sacred cubic building located at the centre of the Great Mosque. The first thing pilgrims do when they arrive is to make 7 laps around the Kaaba, to which they pray 5 times a day wherever they are in the world. The Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and every Muslim who can afford it must perform it at least once in his lifetime. But in addition to being an act of faith, it's a colossal organisational challenge for the Saudi authorities. The worshippers converge on a vast tent camp in Mina in the nearby desert for a day and night of prayer. The temperatures can reach up to 40 degrees centigrade. The government has set up 32 hospitals and 140 health centres, as well as nearly 200,000 tents for worshippers.
Real Madrid have announced a 1-year contract extension for 37-year-old Croatian midfielder Luka Modric. Modric's contract was to expire at the end of the month, but he's decided to stay despite strong interest from clubs in Saudi Arabia. The 2018 Ballon d'Or winner has played 488 games and won 23 trophies during his 11 seasons at the club, including 5 Champions Leagues.